Hello everyone, this is Tina with Tia's Treasures, and today I have for you the January 2022 My Monthly Hero card kit along with some add-ons that I had purchased. I had a lot of fun playing with this kit, and I've tried to use every component of the kit along with at least one thing from the add-ons on each card. Now this kit came with some really fun layering stamps that layer up a beautiful tree branch and a swing with a lot of foliage. You can do it in pinks or some greens. There's all sorts of different ways you can play with that. And then it also came with some really nice sentiments. It came with this beautiful pack of iridescent red not sequins, like jewels, and 4 reactive ink cubes, except for the brown. That one, I believe, is not reactive. It also came with this beautiful background die cover plate with the keyhole and a nice little key as well. And I think that's about it for the kit itself. Now the add-ons, I've got this bundle with some stamps and keys. I got this really fun background stamp, a chain link fence that I use on I think 3 or 4 different cards. And that was, I love that background stamp. And then I've got some lock die cuts that I used on a card, a lot of different size locks. And for the last add-on was this peony that I bought the stencil that matched, so the layering stencil, and it makes a lot of fun, and it makes it easy to color up that peony. And that peony also, I got the matching dies that went with that as well. So I just loved working with all the components that came with this kit. Now for this first card, I took some coppery metallic cardstock, and I used the background die, and I cut that out, and I'm going to what am I doing here? I'm just putting aside some of my backgrounds there, and I am pulling out the little keyhole that I cut out because I am going to put that in the center of the card. I taped it down because it kept wanting to fall out, and I put tape on the background so I could just pop it into place there. And now I'm going to pull off the main cover plate of my card because I am going to pop that up. And I thought about making this a shaker, but I ended up making a shaker out of this die with a different card. Now, so I popped that up, and I took some silver mirrored cardstock that I had, and I cut out a little key, and then I just taped a piece of twine to that in a bow. Used a glue dot for that along with some glue. And now I'm just going to glue this key right in the center of my keyhole there. I've seen some similar cards to this. I think it's a simple design that more than one of us had the idea of doing. As soon as I saw this card kit, I had already knew that that was going to be the design of one of my cards. And now I'm using the sentiment, "You are treasured," and I'm just bringing in some vintage photo distress ink, and I'm inking up the edges of this because the white was a little bit too stark. Now I probably could have used maybe a different color cardstock, but I had stamped it out in white, and I just thought with a little distress ink around the edge that it worked just fine. And I'm going to glue that on. I'm not popping up the sentiment because the background is already popped up, and I'm just going to glue that right in the center there underneath the keyhole, and that's going to be pretty much it for card number 1. It's a simple card, but I just think it's really pretty. And that's it. Now for card number 2, I'm stamping out the heart and the key from one of the stamp sets, the add-on stamp set. And you see right there, I'm using my little powder tool because I always get stray embossing powder everywhere when I emboss anything. And I'm obviously going to be embossing these two different stamps along with the sentiment. I embossed that as well. And I am going to use some Simon Says stamp rose gold embossing powder. And I just think the rose gold is really pretty. And I have got a background that I made using my chain link fence stamp with some silver embossing powder. So I thought it would kind of make it look like we've got the lock and the key on the fence here. And we're using some Nina Desert Storm cardstock that I've got. And I cut out everything there. And now you can see my background. It's a real pretty background. I love that chain link fence. I'll probably say that 2 or 3 more times during this video. Oh man, I love that chain link fence. I'm already trying to figure out ways to incorporate it into other cards. And again, this is a simple card. I'm just gluing down my key and my lock straight down the background. Now the key and the lock and the fence are supposed to symbolize kind of a bridge, I think, in France that lovers will put a lock on and throw the key away. And I'm not really familiar with what bridge it is. I guess I could Google it, but it's a nice gesture. And the sentiment on there is we're a perfect match, hence the lock and the key. And now I'm taking a few gems that are in my stash. They're like clear iridescent AB Aurora Borealis gems, and I'm just putting a few of them scattered amongst my fence here. And that's going to be it for card number 2. And coming up here, you're going to see that I end up making a shaker card. And shaker cards really don't like me. So here is mistake number 1 I did with this shaker card. I took the center of my card there, and again I glued that down, or I taped it down, and I'm going to glue it to the card base just like I did with the first card. So I mean the idea is good, but you're going to see that I don't execute it really well as we go along. And I'll explain to you as we go. So I'm just getting that keyhole in the center of my card base there. And now I'm going to pull up my my card stock. Now I'm using it's about kind of a coppery pearlescent card stock that I'm using for this card. And I'm just taping the back of it so I can put my acetate right on there. I've got some nice acetate sheets that I'm using, and so far so good here. I'm getting everything lined up nice and even. I probably could have cut some of that acetate down, but I figured I don't use most of the scraps I have now, so I would just go ahead and tape the whole sheet. And now I am putting some foam tape around the keyhole. And so I get this foam tape down here. And I figure out after I put everything down that it's not going to be puffy enough. You saw my big head get in the way just for a minute there. I really need to do something with my hair. So, yeah, there's my jewels that I'm using. I mean, these were just too pretty not to use. And I get this put down there, and I ended up putting 2 layers of tape. And after I did this, I figured out later on that night, I've got fun foam I could have used. It would have made everything so much easier. instead. No. And so when I put that sheet down, it did not line up correctly, and I ended up having to rip the whole top off. Now I was able to salvage it by ripping it off, but here's what I should have done. See, I'm using a whole sheet of this pearlescent cardstock on the back now, so there are no like white, you can't see where the white is. And it was really a pain to have to rip it up again. And it seems like that happens on a lot of my cards. No matter how careful I am, I have to rip it off and start all over. So I did end up getting everything put together finally. And now I am going to bring in a little silver heart, and I'm going to put that right in the center. And that silver heart is just, it came off the key from the first card. When I die cut the first card, there's like a little heart in the center. And so I had this little leftover, mirror heart. And I thought that would look nice right over our keyhole. And now I'm just using the sentiment, you hold the key to my heart. I probably should have glued a key on there somewhere, but it already had the keyhole. And I used Vintage Photo to go around this sentiment too, even though I used the Desert Storm cardstock for that sentiment. And I'm second guessing myself, wondering if I should like die cut out a key and put it on there. So that was card number 3. Now for card number 4, you're seeing me ink up the stencil. I am going to ink up that peony, and I'm using the stencil to do that. And I am using some Simon Hurley blue inks. I think I've got like the Remember Me, and there's a few different blues I'm using. Well, 2 different blues. And I end up using 2 of the different greens. And this looks pretty just the way it is. I mean, it's really, really lovely, but I decide that I am going to use some VersaFine Black Onyx ink, and I am going to use line up the stamp and stamp over the florals, just to get that little black outline on it. I probably, like I said, I could have just used the stencil by itself, which this stamp and die set along with the stencil are real versatile. And I just think that's so pretty too. And I'm using another sheet of the cardstock that's got the fence background in it, the silver embossed background. And I am just going to tape that to my base, my card base. And I'm going to tape down the flowers flat as well. And no popping up this. I think I'd had enough of foam tape by this point. Between, that shaker card just slayed me. And now you can see on the back there that I started stenciling it, and I had the stencil upside down. So there was no way that the stamp and the die cuts would have worked on an upside down stencil. And now I'm trying to fit the sentiment thank you on the card, and I figure out that the square just won't work, so I fussy cut it out. And sometimes when you've got a sentiment that just doesn't seem to work on a card, if you fussy cut around it, it just it brings some added interest to the card and to the sentiment itself. So this one is thank you. And now I'm going to pull in some jewels out of my stash, and I'm going to put a few blue gems all over this card. And that's going to be it for card number 4. And this voiceover is going a lot quicker than, I think there was 3 hours of footage here that I've got like shrunk down to 20 minutes. And so this voiceover is a lot quicker than making these cards. Now for card number 5, I took that sheet of wax with the dies, and I didn't even bother cutting apart the dies. I just figured I would cut out every lock here, and I used some, they're on the kind of the copper cardstock that we used for the first kit, and I used this kind of like a metallic wash on them. I don't know if you can see it. I wanted to try to age them up a bit. It didn't come out quite like I wanted. I was trying to find something else in my stash I could use, and I just wasn't finding anything. Now, this key is from the card kit itself. That's the same key that we used in the first card, only cut out in the metallic cardstock in the copper. And we are gluing all this down to the Nina Desert Storm cardstock that you can again see my background fence stamp. And this one too is in the silver embossing. If you look close, you can see where my embossing powder kind of got all over the place on this card. And I don't know why. I used my powder tool, and I still got a lot of embossing powder in places I didn't want it. But I figured these keys would be covering a lot of it. And I'm just gluing them all down, trying to figure out where they look the best. And I think after I get that last one glued down, this last lot glued, there's a little bit of a gap there. I probably should have rearranged one more time, but everything was glued down by that point, so too late. And now I am just gluing my key down to the bottom center, and I am going to use the sentiment, "You're the key to my happiness." Now I heat embossed that in silver to match the fence, and I am just putting that right to the left-hand bottom corner. And for this card, I'm not going to use any sorts of jewels or sequins on, and that was it for card number 5. Now for card number 6 here, I have a background with the stamp, the fence background stamp. I didn't heat emboss it. I just used some gray ink, and I am going to use our little branch on our swing. Now I went back and forth on whether I wanted to use the pink foliage or the green, and I end up using the green just because of summer. And I also, when I planned this card, I kind of wanted to do more on the bottom. I was going to put a little path and some grass, and I think I was just burnt out by the time I got to this card, and so I just ended up gluing down our green foliage and our swing. Now it comes with foliage that you can use on the swing, but I kind of like the swing without it, and so I didn't end up using that even though I had stamped it out. And now here I am. I keep going back and forth. What do I want to use? Green or pink? Green or pink? And like I said, I went with the green just because, I have summer on the mind. And we're about to get hit with a huge snowstorm here between, for 2 days it's supposed to snow, and I think we're supposed to get between 8 and 20 inches, which is a big variation depending on where you are, is how much snow you're going to get. And so we'll find out. I'll know probably by Thursday morning how much snow we have. And now I am just using the little sentiment hello, and it's got a cute little heart next to it. And I just love that hello with the heart. And I thought about fussy cutting it out, but I just used, left it in a little square. And now I'm using some more of the jewels like we used in the first card. And I'm kind of just putting a sprinkling of them across our card here. If I can get them to quit popping off that sheet, I would try to get one off and it would just pop off and fly across my room. Or it didn't want to come off the sheet at all. And I think I end up putting four little jewels on here. And that's going to be it for card number 6. So if you liked these cards, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps me a lot. And please subscribe. I'm trying to reach the next milestone. I'd like to get up to 400 subscribers. But if not, I'm glad you're here anyway. And bye-bye for now, everyone.